what we give our energy to is what grows. And so when we don't have enough energy to tend to all the things that we're trying to do, the things that don't get our energy don't move forward. The needle doesn't move. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Priority Report. I'm Scotti, and a few quick mentions as we open up this episode. I know this is a small milestone, but like every little milestone counts. I practice that with my clients, and I'm practicing it here with you at this very moment. This is, and it may not seem like a big deal to you, but this is episode 9, which means that we are a third of the way through our episodes for the year. OMG. So that's super exciting. I feel a sense of accomplishment. What's coming up for me is like, I'm kind of starting to enjoy this long form content thing. Like, I'm actually feel way more confident at long form content than I do at short form. Shockingly not shocking. If you know me, I tend to be a fairly verbose person to begin with, so it does make sense that I might enjoy having a few more words to fit in to this medium. So I hope that you're enjoying the podcast episodes as we're moving forward here a little bit more each episode, I would say each week, but these come out bi-weekly. I think that they are improving, not that they don't still have room to improve. They have much room to improve, but I'm feeling really good about the direction that we're heading in. So I just wanted to just give a little shout out about that. And thank you again, of course, always to OV3 Media, who produces this for me. They are a phenomenal podcasting production company. So I just want to make sure that they get their tip of the hat for this episode. And then today we are going to talk about, well, I've got a client story for you. I happen to love those. A really great client story for you that has to do with pivoting and what happens when we are real quick to pivot and not clear on, by extension, not clear on where our focus needs to be. So really excited for that. But of course, as always, I want to start off with talking about my priority report for the week and how I am doing with my own priorities before we get into other people's. So first and foremost, I have been holding tried and true for the most part on my water intake. I think this is probably this is the third episode that I'm recording talking about this. So I want to say it's probably been at least a month that I've been really working on trying to hit my water goals very much better today. And my long-term goal is to get up to 2.5 liters of water in every single day. I am still not there. In fact, I had 2 days this past week that I totally slipped, and I was drinking, I got 26 or 28 ounces instead of my minimum of 32. But I say that because it's really important to just in those moments get back on the horse, get back to doing the thing, get back to the behaviors that help to keep you in alignment with what it is that you are trying to accomplish. There's no point in beating yourself up over it. There's no point in worrying about the water that's already under the bridge, literally and figuratively. And so I had to get back up this past couple of days and just get back with it. And I have, and so I'm feeling really good about that. It is around 10 o'clock in the morning today as I'm recording this, and I've already got 32 ounces in. So I am back. I am in a good spot for that as of this morning. That being said, the other thing that I've been working on and talking about with you is meal prep. And guys, I've not been doing great with my tracking. I think I've been consistent now for like 20 days straight at having something in my tracker. And it's a pretty, like, it does not have gaping holes. It's much better than I've done in the past. So like getting back into the cadence of putting things directly in. I am not to the point of putting them in advance. If I would get my full week planned out and just block them in all like on Sunday when I do all of my meal prep, that would be genius. And I just have not gotten it together enough to do that yet. However, I do want to brag just a little bit about the lasagna that I made this week. In terms of like living my values, and this lasagna, I made my noodles and my sauce from scratch because why wouldn't I? So, I made an egg noodle, pasta dough, which was fabulous, and then rolled that out, into sheets, and then, just like made a red tomato sauce in the blender that was delightful. It wasn't anything complicated. It was like 3 beefsteak tomatoes, a shallot, salt, pepper. I'm trying to think what else I even threw in there. Oh, some fresh basil, and then tomato paste just for a thickener. And then I did like a white creamy, I think it's called fonduta. Don't quote me on that. It was recommended in the recipe that I was very, very loosely following. But you basically you're supposed to take heavy cream. I think I took light cream, whatever your preference is. And then like heated, slow boiled that with like a Parmesan, like a freshly grated Parmesan Remaggiano. So that was lovely and delightful. And then I put broccolini and fresh mozzarella cheese and a combo of beef and pork that was ground. What else did I have in there? Spinach, mushrooms, zucchini. The long and short of this very giant tangent about lasagna is like I got around to being like, I should track this because like it's a hearty lasagna in that it has a lot of different like vegetables and meats and like a lot of things that perhaps like traditional lasagna I just think of as just being like layers upon layers of like cheese, just like oozing with saturated fat. And this was not that. And so in order to put it in to my tracker accurately, I would have to put in like the pasta dough recipe and then my sauce recipe and then all of my vegetables and then like combine those recipes into one lasagna recipe. Y'all, I don't have time for that. I could do it. And if I was in prep, if I was real in a pinch, I would get that shit done. However, I am not. And cart before horse, it was more important that I tracked lasagna, period, than it was whether or not that lasagna was like super duper accurate in like I know how many pieces I had, and if I looked up, I think I ended up like looking up a generic like homemade lasagna in MyFitnessPal, and it was somewhere around like 420 calories or something per slice. Is that accurate? I mean, I would like to think it's not too far off given that all of like the vegetables were steamed, and that there were quite a few of them, that like the sauce was homemade, the noodles were so like a level of additional like preservatives, saturated fat, the things that you find in like a normal like store-bought or restaurant-based lasagna. I felt like it was healthier than that. But anyway, the point that I'm making is we track to the level that we need to complete the task at hand. So right now is, while I would love for my accuracy to be much better, and I do need to keep an eye on that moving forward, and that's one of the things that I'm telling you is accountability for myself. Not tracking it at all was not negotiable. We'll see that theme come up today about non-negotiables. Like, it needed to get tracked, period, end of story. And since it's like all that I ate for 3 days, sorry, not sorry, that was relatively easy for me to just plug in, and at least I knew that those days were going to be all accurately inaccurate relative to one another consistently. So, and then my last thing on my priority report was just, I just want to say, like, I'm so excited. As I'm recording this, this podcast is launching the 25th of July. We're just under 2 weeks out from that. So I am just like deep sigh of relief. Also just like deep breath in, because I don't know how this is going to do in market, and I'm hoping you all enjoy it. But I do feel like I am, this has been a stretch for me. I've said that since episode 1. This is getting outside of my comfort zone. It's doing something I've never done before. It's getting a better pulse on what it is that I say and do in my work that resonates with all of y'all. And I'm really excited to share it with you, because the more that I can share and provide value to you in just your everyday life and how to live just a little bit better, just that 1% better every day, like that just makes me happy. So really excited to just build some enthusiasm, get comfortable with what it means to put out a marketing campaign like this and really promote this show. And really excited to just sort of set that benchmark so that we can together, you and I can look back at this in another 9 episodes, in 26, when we reach 26 episodes, in 5 years, whatever it happens to be, and just look at how far we've come.
Did you know your breakthrough is closer than ever? Introducing the Quantum Leap Catalyst. Designed for the go-getter who craves flexibility, this is your all-access pass to transformation on your terms, on your schedule. You'll get lifetime access to all 12 Empowerment Method modules, 4 powerful journaling meditations, my personal podcast playlist for daily inspiration, and my Healthy Habits for Intentional Eating ebook. Because thriving isn't just about mindset, it's about fueling your whole self. Whether you're ready to go solo or perhaps even thrive in a community, your journey starts now. So what's your next move? Visit slowlivingsolutions.com and claim your spot.
Time to jump into my client story. So, had a really great meeting with a client this past week. They have a lot going on. They run several businesses. They have a homestead. They've got a lot of things on their plate that they've committed to, and they are just trying to figure out like how to move the needle in the direction that they are looking to go. And we've had many a conversation, them and I, about specifically about what happens when you pivot too quickly. So you see that something isn't working, whether it's like in your business or in your relationships or in just like the logistics of your everyday life. And like whether we mean to or not, we tend to like shift and shift and shift and shift and then be like, oh my God, I can't understand why it's not working. And so we were talking through like, they're a very self-aware person. So they were reflecting on that, like they see themselves doing this, maybe not in the moment, but they definitely can look in hindsight and be like, oh, I definitely am one of those people prone to putting like thousands of irons in the fire. And it's not a terrible strategy, but it's like all things in their place. So the more irons that you put into the fire, because like, why not work more than one thing at a time? Like you can do that. And you should do that. Like keep your options open, in whatever it is that you happen to be working on. However, if you have so many that you can't tend to all of them in the fire anymore, well, now you have challenges because you have put all of these things in as a means of nurturing them into something, but you don't have more time to spend across more irons. You just have to take the time that you have and disperse that time across all of the irons. So where it's like, oh, I'm working all of these different avenues and I'm working on all these different things, like, you know, me, not so tongue-in-cheek, but tongue-in-cheek was like, but are you though? Like, are you? Because the reality that none of us wants to admit, myself included, is like, if I'm paying attention to this thing over here, it means that this thing over here is not getting my attention. And while I want to believe that it's like working its magic over here on its own, doing its own thing in the corner, whatever, like it's not. What we give our energy to is what grows. And so when we don't have enough energy to tend to all the things that we're trying to do, the things that don't get our energy don't move forward. The needle doesn't move. Which is why prioritization, ding, 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 is so important, is because we can only focus on so many things and feel like we're making any progress, much less make progress in actuality. And so it becomes really important that not only do we get clear about what our priorities are across all of the things that we're trying to accomplish, but that when we narrow our scope, we inherently can see our progress more. Does that make sense? So the progress is so much slower when we have so many things that we're trying to juggle at the same time, that like no small amount of energy is amounting to anything because it's not happening consistently enough to get us somewhere fast enough. And so when we're spread super, super thin, you may feel this in burnout or overwhelm or any number of other things that you want to name. We don't feel a sense of that we're getting somewhere. We're doing a lot of stuff and it's like we're spinning our wheels. So it's really important that we get clear about what it is that we want to focus our attention on. Next up, when we don't have an order of importance to our priorities, so step one, make sure that you have narrowed the number of things that you're working on. Like, don't try and work 1,000 things. Like, pick your top 3 to 5. And then when you think about order of importance, so even if you were to go like, okay, let's be generous. Let's say you get your top 10 list, okay? 10 things is a lot, folks. 10 things is a lot. So if you had a list of your top 10 things, you still have to order them as like most important to least important within that consolidated list. So we need to get clear on within our priorities, which priorities are more important. One tool that you can use for this that I highly recommend, if you're familiar with the Eisenhower Matrix, The Eisenhower Matrix crosses urgency with importance. Okay? So if it is, I have to try and do this as I'm looking at the camera, bear with me. If it is super high urgency and it's super important, it's going to be in this box over here in the top left corner. That's what you want to focus your energies on. If it's super urgent but less important, or it is, what do we have left here? Well, if it's not, let's put it this way, if it's not important and it's not urgent, it probably doesn't need to be done in the first place. So like parking lot that, or just take it off the list altogether. And if it is high importance but low urgency, personally, I like to come back to that second. But this gives you a way of being able to say, I'm going to focus here, I'm going to delegate here, I'm going to delete here, I'm going to plan here. So that is one way to take your priorities list and start to narrow down where within that priorities list you want to be focused. So think high importance, high urgency, that is the box that you need to play in first and foremost. So stay attuned to that as your North Star. Third, where are we today? Third, I wanted to bring up, I saw a lovely little snippet from Gary Vee, if you're familiar with him, from, I don't know, it was from today, I'm sure, or something that was posted very recently. But what he was talking about, and here I'm kind of going on a little bit of a business tangent, but I think that y'all are smart enough that you can kind of like blow this out into a larger concept. But when we're thinking about the activities that we're doing, we need to make sure that we are doing them for the right reasons. So in his context, he's talking about creating content online or elsewhere, right? Like whether it's video work or it's graphic design or it's like social media or it's whatever it is, right? We have to put the end user at the forefront. So the person who's receiving, when I'm recording this podcast for you, everything that I'm talking about has to be in alignment with what I believe it is that is helpful and meaningful for you to hear. Not what I think is going to get me the most likes or shares or like ranked highest on Apple or Spotify or whatever. Like I have to be focused on what my audience needs, not on what I'm going to get out of it. So like in the case of content per se, like, or a business, like if we're too fixated in our priorities on just making money, well, there's a million ways to make $1 million, as Marie Wald always says. But if all you're focused on is making the money and you're not actually focused on the delivery of value, like we have a misalignment there. And there's a level of disingenuousness that your audience will feel because your intention is not aligned in good faith with who it is that you're trying to speak to. So I've talked in earlier episodes, when you're making content, when you're an artist, when you are just doing basic communication, you really have to use your intention to think about like, why am I communicating what I'm communicating? How am I communicating it? Is it effective? And is it landing the way that I intend for it to, in order for the result of it landing to be beneficial to me, right? So the dollars and cents from a business is still important, but that can't be our motivating driving factor or the forefront. It can't be our reason for making the content. Like, we have to be genuine in what it is that we're doing. And by being genuine in what it is that we're doing is where you reap the dollars and cents or whatever other reward works in your particular personal example as a result. So we've talked about this in the context of like losing weight. if you're going in to lose weight, there are plenty of ways to lose weight, but losing it and keeping it off has way more to do with mindset and lifestyle and way less to do with the scale itself. So if you're going in and you're like, I just want to lose 20 pounds and all you're hyper fixated on is the losing of the 20 pounds, your likelihood of keeping that 20 pounds off is very low in comparison to focusing on the activities that lead to weight loss, so that you've built up patterns of behavior and habits that support the result of losing the weight that it is that you want to get to, right? So I'm exercising the muscle of creating a great podcast so that my podcast will eventually be watched by thousands of people and rank really high on Apple and whatever else we want to like call those like residual results. That of course, like, you know, I guess if I were going to try and like pick the selfish for me, right, is I want my podcast to then drive back to my website, drive to my Instagram, drive people to get to know me, that then want to work with me. So you're getting a taste of what it's like to have a conversation with me. But if I'm going in and all that I'm thinking about is the end result, and I'm not thinking about like us just having a conversation today, and what it is that you're learning in this very moment, then like it's kind of a loss, right? So all of that to say, let me just recap really quickly. You need to figure out if you've got too many irons in the fire. I need you to start thinking about what are your priorities. What's in that important and urgent box? All right, so like narrow the number, figure out the level of importance and urgence, and then figure out your intention. Are the ways in which you're going about executing on this short list genuine? Are they directed in a way that is meant to deliver you the results that you're looking for by altruistically providing and delivering value to someone? Or are you just hammering it home to get the immediate satisfaction of whatever it is that the tangible result is that you're looking for? Think long and hard about that. So in business, those tangible result things, we call those KPIs, so key performance indicators. Something that I have to remind myself of, and I think this is like a good dovetail, is when we're playing a long game, which is what running a business is, frankly, or we're on a weight loss journey, or we're content creators and we're trying to build an audience, whatever the case may be, structuring our priorities and being really specific about how we measure success changes your mindset and relationship to the things that you are doing. Because as we were just talking about, like, we don't get instant gratification for the things that we are doing. We are putting things into the universe expecting to have long-term residual benefits from it. So, for example, we've been talking throughout this podcast about the fact that at the time that I'm recording this, the podcast hasn't even launched yet. The podcast isn't launching until like 10 plus ish days from now. But I'm working on this and knowing that you're going to watch it in 90 days from now. So in 90 days from now, like that's where I'm planting my seeds, right? Like when we, for those of you, I was not a 4-H kid, but for whatever reason, farming comes to mind, right? Like if you are, even if you just plant a garden, like I was going to use corn, like farming corn as the example. You don't get to like plant the seed and then suddenly like reap the fruit off the tree. Like that's not how that works. You plant the seed, you water the seed, you weed the beds, you have to like nurture and tend to and take care of the thing that you are starting with an expectation that you're going to get benefits from it in another 90 days or in another 6 months or in another 3 years or whatever, like whatever the measure of time happens to be that you're looking at. But what that means for me, like right now, as I'm recording this with you, is like what I have in market cannot expect I cannot measure the success of what's in market right now according to the results that I want to receive in 90 days. I have to be focused on what are the results that I expect for this 2-week increment that is right now. So I have a new my campaign's rolled out in 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks is a new campaign. And so the focus of the business is on something different for every 2 weeks, but these 2 weeks are a concerted effort in one direction. So I measure my success based on what I am putting in and when I expect to get something out from it. So with 2-week increments, I have goals that are meant to be for 2 weeks, knowing that I'm also on the what we'll call like the behind the scenes side of my business, doing specific activities within that 2-week time frame that are also setting me up to succeed in the next 90 plus days. So my key performance indicators for a campaign are going to be about how the work that I'm doing at that time is performing in market. So in theory, actually I think it's true, I don't think it's even a theory, the 2-week increment that I'm leading into with my current campaign was planned 90 days ago. So I like the execution portion of it has happened, and I established what my intentions were for this 2-week increment. And now I have to measure according to that 2-week increment, not according to what I want to have happen, not according to some other measure, but like what was my focus that when I designed this campaign 90 days ago that I expected to be my results within this time frame. That's how I have to look at success. And especially in like a business context, I think it's really important. I just want to reiterate this. It's a phrase my best friend uses all the time. You cannot be upset about the results you didn't get for the work that you didn't do. Okay? Now, we've been talking about throughout this episode, like lots of irons in the fire. It means that you're doing a lot of things. So like, I can see how you might be sitting there being like, don't tell me that I don't do enough. Like I'm doing a lot. I'm doing all the things, all the time. I'm exhausted by all the things. But if the things that you are doing, this is where intentionality becomes super important, are not focused on the outcomes that you are looking to achieve, then you can't be upset about it. So let me contextualize this for myself. If I had a sales goal that I wanted to hit within this particular campaign, I needed to be doing sales related activities to that goal that were leading up to this time frame. If I'm here and I'm like, oh, money is not coming in, or whatever the case may be, right? Like whatever my expectation was for dollars and cents in my sales plan, and it's not happening right now, but I didn't do any of the preliminary tasks that would have set me up to receive those results at this time, I can't be mad about that. My focus was on something else. If you have all these irons in the fire and your irons aren't focused on getting you a result within a specific time frame that's like reasonable for starters and planned, then like if you didn't water your corn or you watered the neighbor's corn instead, that ain't gonna help you. So so making sure that your measures for success are appropriate and aligned to the actions that you intentionally took that are in accordance with your order of importance for your short list of priorities. See if you can follow me on that. Next up, so let's talk then. So we've established these like more or less 4 things that we need to be focused on. Let's talk about how we get out of the cycle though. Because we end up in the too many irons in the fire of our own making, but not necessarily because that's where we wanted to be or how we want to operate. We can see it and then we're like, crap, now what do I do? Like, how do I get myself out of this? So what I talked about with my client, and I'm going to recommend to you as well, is we go back to basics when this kind of thing happens. I do it. I'm suggesting you do it. My client is doing it right now. How you do anything is how you do everything. So take a look when you go back to your basics. And what I mean by that is like, go back to things like your morning routine. You're like, how does making the bed or not making the bed have to do with this? It does. It absolutely does. Look at how you treat your morning routine from the time you get up to the time you get to work. Are you consistent in the things that you do and don't do and the order in which you do them during that time frame? That's an interesting exercise that I think is worth documenting for yourself. Or if you don't even want to go that far, like wake up every day and start taking note of it. Consciously be living in the moment, recognizing what you are or are not doing on a consistent basis every single morning when you get up. Not that your life has to be ridiculously monotonous. However, within a morning routine, we typically have things that align for us as being what I'm going to call non-negotiables. So an example being, some of us, we get up. I believe in making the bed first thing. I have to do a weigh-in, check-in. I need to let the dog out. I need to take my meditation practice for 5 minutes. Yes, only 5 minutes. I need to eat breakfast, and then I need to get to the gym so that I am home at a reasonable hour to walk the dog and get to work on time. It doesn't always happen perfectly that way, but there are a few things that that are absolutely non-negotiable. I have to eat. Like, I don't function if I don't eat. So that's a non-negotiable. Another non-negotiable would be getting the puppy outside so that he has some time in the morning to stretch his legs, sniff some sniffs, take a bio break, whatever else he decides to mischievously do in the backyard in the morning of his own demise. He needs his time. So like making sure that he's taken care of is a non-negotiable. Feeding the cat is a non-negotiable. But more simply than, looking at external factors, I have fur babies, you have children, or don't, it's not for me to judge. But perhaps you do. When we think about taking care of ourselves, we should have some non-negotiables that have to do with our needs. So I mentioned, my meditation time. I mentioned I need to make sure that I get breakfast in. I make a pretty standard procedure of making sure that I do my weigh-in every single day. It's very rare that I miss that. But we can't talk about things as being non-negotiables and then not do them. And so that was one of the conversations I was having. My client was, when you look at the things that set you up for success throughout your day, your morning routine should be the things that make you your best self by the time that you have to be fit for human consumption. So if you're skipping breakfast, or you don't have a lunch packed, or you procrastinate and don't get out of bed on time, or you don't get your meditation practice in, or whatever the case may be, and then your day is wrecked, well, what did you expect? Right? Starting to take notes of those things of what do I need to set myself up for success? And then I can't waver on those things. My nutrition, when I think about what I eat for breakfast in particular, I don't waver on. I eat the same thing almost every day for breakfast. It makes my life easier. It doesn't mean you have to do that, but the point being that like I have to make sure that that is always happening, because I need to make sure that my glucose numbers are up. I need to make sure that I am not that my body is not thinking that I'm in like starvation mode and suddenly my metabolism is slowing because it thinks that I am short of food source. I need to make sure that if I'm feeding all of the other animals in my house, that my mouth is also getting food. And so doing those little things allows me to then show up in bigger ways in places where I might not have as much hyper-regimentation or hyper-consistency. My workday does not look the same every day. My activities tend to vary depending on whether it's a client day or it's a marketing day or it's a like catch up on all of the other back-end stuff kind of day. But I have to, if I'm not taking care of me on the things that then allow me to show up and be present for those things, I can't be surprised when all the other stuff falls apart. So in order to get better about what are the irons and how many irons do I have in the fire at large, I have to make sure that the things that are not irons, the things that exist as the stability, the stable things that are always taking place in my life consistently, I need to make sure that those things are setting me up to then be able to manage the priorities as the priorities change. Right? So solid foundations. Other things that you can do in order to figure out like what those solid foundations are, or to become more mindful of them in the moment. It's not rocket science, guys. I want to like give you some like aha moment here, and there, at least in my mind, there really isn't one. We have to call conscious attention to the lived moment and experience that we are having every day in the present. It's, today's present is tomorrow's memory. So we need to take note of these things like as we're living them, because if you don't bring conscious awareness to the present moment of like, oh, I've spread myself too thin, or oh, I'm not focused on like being here, right now, or oh, I didn't do the things that I was supposed to do for myself so that I had what I needed to like get through the day the most, like as my best self and most efficiently. Like if we're not calling present attention and awareness to it, we can't open the ability to have choice. So when we bring conscious awareness to how our activities and our trains of thought are impacting us in the moment, it pulls us into the limbic brain. We have to start thinking with logic and reason and interact with the world in real time. And in doing so, we can then make choices. And choices are where our power lies. So you cannot access a different choice and start changing your behavior to get a better outcome or result, or to shift your priorities or narrow the scope, if we're not first and foremost focused on the here and now and like recognizing when something is happening, recognizing when we're triggered, recognizing when we're having a moment. Next, you have to be honest about what your intention is. If you are like, no, I just want to put like good things out into the world, and then like you're operating from a place of scarcity and like fear of not having enough, and whatever the latest crisis is, whether that's like the external world giving you a bunch of uncertainty, or that's like, I need to pay my bills. At the end of the day, like, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to like have that internal conversation about like what's motivating my behavior, and is that the place I want to operate from? And if it's not the place that you want to operate from, then you have to make a different choice about how you want to operate. And that means oftentimes, like, we can operate from like a place of scarcity and be like, oh, I don't like that about what I'm doing, but it's comfortable because we're used to what it feels like to be in a scarcity mindset. And that's normal for us, and maybe it's normal for the people around us. And then we don't give ourselves, like, we don't actually want to step out and try and think differently or change our thought process or approach something with from a different perspective, because like it's uncomfortable. It's like, it's new, and like you have to consciously think about it, right? Like, we don't instill habits into our subconscious without them having to first go through the conscious. So it's really important that we take the time to think about, like, what am I honestly trying to achieve here? Like, why am I feeling the feelings that I'm having? And then what is a different choice that I could make about the way that I want to approach this? Is there a way to be more positive? Is there a way to shift my attention towards a different outcome, or shift it towards an outcome for somebody else instead of the result we're looking for ourselves? Like, how do I make sure that I'm delivering so that I am open to receiving? Let me say that one more time. How can I shift my mindset to delivering so that I am open to receiving? Okay. Do my behaviors align with my values? So think about it. If you espouse that you believe in certain things, and that's why, like, your non-negotiables are non-negotiable. Well, if your behavior doesn't align to that, then clearly it is negotiable. Like, if you're not going to do what you said you were going to do, if you are not going to live in integrity and in alignment with who you are or who you say that you are, then that statement doesn't hold true. So it's really important that we start looking at, like, do my behaviors reinforce my values? In the empowerment method, we call those operating principles. When we are demonstrating what our core values are, that shows up in our behaviors, regardless of our environment, regardless of who we're around. We maintain consistency in how it is that we choose to walk through the world. But we have to remember that how we walk through the world all happens through what we do, not just what we say. So coming back to making sure that those things align with one another is super, like, that's like fundamentals 101, y'all. That's why it's at the beginning of the empowerment method program, and habits is towards the end. Because it takes a really long time of establishing not just what your values are, but then practicing them and then being able to instill them into habits. And then finally, we have kind of what I was saying earlier is, like, you have to make a choice and take action. So you've caught yourself in the moment. You're thinking about what your honest intention is. You're asking yourself if your behaviors, which are probably aligned to your intention, if those honestly demonstrate your values. And then you have to make choices about how it is that you either want to maintain what it is that you are doing, because you're like, yes, I am on the right path. I'm doing the thing that I believe in, and I can feel good about the way that I am carrying myself with integrity. Or you have to go, like, shit, maybe not so much. What do I want to change? What do I want to do differently? Like, and that's where your habits start to play a bigger role in the overall picture of how it is that you move through the world. So your habit is that little shift that you want to make that puts you from having non-negotiable behaviors that are negotiable into alignment in your integrity with your behaviors aligning to the things that you value. So make choices, take action. All right. So let's just do a little recap. Rewind, recap, bring it all back together, right? What did we talk about today? We were talking about what it means when we put too many irons in the fire. when we are prone to pivoting, when we are prone to saying yes to everything, when we are trying to do all of the quote unquote multitasking that we talk about, and all of a sudden we're stuck in this place of overwhelm and burnout and all of the other buzzwords you can think of that mean overwhelm and burnout and people pleasing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do we, we found ourselves there, and now we need to have an intervention on the situation. So we know that we can take action on recognizing of our list of all of the irons. How do we narrow the scope and stay focused on fewer but more meaningful ones? Then we need to make sure that we know of our short list. What's the order of importance? And what are we judging that based on? So we need to be clear about what our intention is for each of those irons, making sure that it is about the value we deliver to others, not just about ourselves and what we're trying to get out of the situation. And then we need to build consistency in our activities, in working the process, in nurturing the irons that are our shortlist priorities, with appropriate measures for success for the applicable timeframes. So plant your seeds and don't think you're going to harvest them immediately. Plant your seeds, tend to your garden. You will reap the fruit, but you got to give it time to grow. You got to do all the things to optimize the growth of the harvest, or there's nothing for you. If you don't sow, you can't reap, right? So make sure you're tending to the garden. Sow the garden, tend the garden, nurture the garden, water the garden, then you can take from the garden after you've already delivered to it. So what we landed on at the end of our conversation was that you need to be prepared to deliver in order to open yourself up to receiving. Catch yourself in the moment. Remind yourself of your honest intention. Make sure your non-negotiables align with your values. Make a choice and take action. All right, so to close out, I want you to take a note of maybe something that this conversation challenges you with. And especially as you're about to make a choice and take action, if you feel like you need to realign yourself to be more in your integrity with your non-negotiables, I want you to think about how you can frame up your new action that you're going to take as being related to your future self. So I'm going to take this new action, create this new habit for myself so that I become the person I want to be. So that I become a person who does, is, says, emulates what? That is important to you. Take action today as an investment in your future self, because you will reap the benefits in the future when you become that person. All right, that is everything for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode. It was, I think it was a good one. I enjoyed it, at least. I love these types of conversations. I hope that you are, with each and every single one, getting a clearer and clearer picture of why things like priorities, habits, decision making, thoughtfulness, awareness, how all of these things they're not sexy, they're not fun, they're really hard. Like, simple is not easy. And I feel like that is much of the aim of the game here. It's the living solutions is really about how do we address the small stuff that has really big impact on our lives. So to close out, I just want to say you can never save time. You can only choose how you spend it. And thank you for spending this time with me. And I will look forward to my next episode with you. Take care.